Hello and welcome to this presentation on the updated Safe Return to Gaelic Games guidelines in a Kellogg's Cúl Camps context. This presentation is a broad overview of the information contained in the most recent return to play documents from the GAA's COVID advisory group. We'll be covering basic medical overview information on preparing for a safe return, information for players, coaches in particular, health questionnaire information, and information on accessing the club education resources that we have online on the GAA's learning portal. So, by way of introduction, Owen Toohey is my name, and I work with the GAA's Player, Club and Games Administration Department. So the updated return to play guidelines are prepared by the COVID-19 advisory group, and these guidelines remain fluid and flexible, and the possibility of them changing ever so slightly as we return to play throughout the summer is a possibility. The working document, which is subject to change, as I say, is available on learning.gaa.ie/COVID-19, and we would encourage everyone, players, parents, guardians, coaches, head coaches, and anyone involved in GAA activity to familiarise themselves with the content on the learning portal page. All of the return to play guidelines ensure compliance with the best guidance provided by governments and national health agencies on the island. And the priority is always to protect the health and well-being of participants. So just first to touch on some basic medical information, as we're all familiar with at this point, but it's no harm to go back to basics as we return to Gaelic game activity and to the start of the Cúl Camps. So COVID-19 is a highly infectious disease. The majority of people infected will have mild or no symptoms at all, but if infected, the disease may spread rapidly. The most common methods of the transmissibility are through coughing and sneezing, close contact with infected persons, and the touching of surfaces that are already contaminated with the virus. Symptoms can take up to 14 days to appear, and most commonly they take the form of a fever, cough, or shortness of breath, and or the loss of smell and taste. So it's important to say at this point as well, and to reiterate that positive symptomatology or a temperature over 37.5 precludes attendance at GAA events. The GAA are not enforcing temperature checks. This is just as a way of information. It's up to parents and guardians of underage players to check temperatures at their own discretion. And if there is the presence of symptoms or a high temperature, the first protocol should be to contact the GP. And of course, more information from a medical point of view is available on the HSE website. So then, in terms of staying safe, and this is within any context, particularly in the Gaelic Games and return to Cúl Camps context, there are 5 broad rules that we encourage all of our members and volunteers to follow. That includes frequent hand washing, maintenance of social distancing where applicable, avoiding touching the eyes, nose and mouth wherever possible, practicing good respiratory hygiene, and if there is the presence of any symptoms, seeking medical care immediately. So the safe return to contact sports is the personal responsibility of each player, parent, guardian or backroom member. And just to touch briefly on the use of face coverings and masks. The use of face coverings is required in certain prescribed settings as outlined by the HSE, and these are predominantly indoor settings, busy outdoor spaces where a lot of people gather. We're not encouraging the congregation or the meeting of large groups of people at Cúl Camps or at GAA events. So yeah, applying common sense to these situations is the advice, and all parents, guardians, players and backroom personnel, coaches should familiarise themselves with the settings where the HSE is recommending that masks be worn. So with regard to the COVID-19 club education programme, and firstly the e-learning module, anyone who is involved in a GAA club already, parents and guardians of players, should have completed this within the last 12 months. But those not involved, just to be aware that this module should have been completed at least once within the last 12 months by the parent or guardian. You can conjunction with the child if they wish to make them aware as well. And this module is available on the GAA's learning portal as well. It'll be clearly signposted within the COVID-19 section. Just to touch base on the module as well, it should of course be completed by coaches working on the camps, head coaches, and any volunteers, supervisors and officers within the last 12 months as well. With regard to the return to play health questionnaire, this should be completed before each day of Cúl Camps, before each training session by players and by the parents and guardians of underage players of course, and again by coaches and volunteers involved as well. Updated guidelines and resources are constantly being uploaded to the GAALearning portal as they come in and as they are agreed upon by government and then consequentially by the COVID-19 advisory group. So a suite of resources has been developed and can still be accessed on the GAALearning portal. Just on the questionnaire as well, just to touch base on that, more detail will be coming from Ross Megan, the head of IT within the GAA, who is looking after the Fririn system, and the questionnaire is directly linked in with that Fririn system this time around to render it a more user-friendly experience for everyone involved. So personal details will not be tracked, and participants who were registered on Fririn as a member of their club will automatically have their details uploaded as part of the return to play protocols as well. Just to advance a few points made on the health questionnaire before Tomas comes in and provides further specific and practical details on completing it. So prior to each day of Cúl Camps and until further notice, parents and guardians of underage players, anyone who is working at or will be attending Cúl Camps should complete the self-administered standard risk assessment health questionnaire. So this needs to be completed once, and then the health status needs to be reconfirmed each morning before attending Cúl Camps. And a how-to guide is available on the learning portal as well as webinars as well. So just to re-emphasize again that the presence of symptoms or a temperature over 37.5 degrees precludes attendance at Cúl Camps, training or games. And in such circumstances, the individual should telephone their GP for advice and management at once. So as I say, a user guide for clubs on using the questionnaire is available in the learning portal, as are recorded webinars. Hopefully that will make the process as seamless as possible for people attending Cúl Camps to recheck their status before each day. Next up, we're just touching base on the updates with regards to facilities from a club perspective, I suppose, in particular. So as clubs will no doubt already have in place, signage should be clearly visible at strategic locations throughout the club, and they should be emphasising the importance of good hygiene, avoiding the shaking of hands or spitting. And these posters are available on the GAALearning portal as well if needed. And we would encourage clubs to have these readily available throughout Cúl Camps. Hand sanitizer dispensers should be provided in, again, strategic locations, car parks, outside toilets. And disposal bins should then be made available for hazardous biological waste, and these should be clearly marked, distinct, as opposed to regular bins. Keep bathrooms and toilets as well ventilated as possible, with signs again to promote basic hygiene with underage players and with smaller children. And there should be regular deep cleaning undertaken as part of the process during the week for Cúl Camps as well. Clubs should have an isolation room prepared if needed. So if an adult coach or volunteer becomes unwell, they should go home immediately, contact the GP for further information, who will take it from there. And if an underage player or child becomes unwell, they should be escorted to the isolation room by 2 adults, the GP contacted, and the protocol after that will be the responsibility of the GP. It's important to note at that point as well that masks should of course be worn in an indoor setting, and 2 adults must be present in the incident of a child becoming unwell and having to go to the isolation room. Just a quick note on the signage there as well with regard to on the pitch. Signage should be visible here as well, and if people are dealing with children for medical matters, masks should be worn and appropriate PPE if available. There should be also facilities available for coaches to disinfect equipment, balls and so on, and they should be used regularly as well, wherever possible. This section references the role of the COVID supervisor. So in a general GA context, there should be a supervisor at the head of each team. So in Cúl Camps context, the supervisor will be the head coach overseeing the camp. So they will be obviously at each day of camp. They, like everyone else involved, must have completed the online e-learning return to play module within the last 12 months. And they should make themselves clearly identifiable by wearing a specific bib while on the facility to outline the role that they are occupying. And the main duties really is to just check that each child attending will have reconfirmed their health status in advance, and ensuring that the proper hygiene and sanitization protocols are followed at the facility before and after each day of camp. The maintenance of records of attendees will be automatically done online, so they'll be able to check this via the Freedom system. And just to bear in mind in terms of cleaning as well, to oversee that process, door handles and equipment and bathrooms and so on, that be done in thorough capacity each day as well. With regard to the scheduling of activities, so the first point here refers to ordinary GAA training in terms of the use of timesheets as intervals between teams in a Cúl Camp setting. Obviously, we have different groups of kids together based on age. So these groups should not mix with others and should stay within members of their own pod as they would ordinarily. The principle of get in and train and get out to be applied, obviously again slightly different in this context, but the point here leads on to the next one essentially, which is that congregation should be discouraged, particularly when at collection time when parents or guardians come to collect children. And as with ordinary training, parents and guardians should not attend ordinarily, but in exceptional circumstances in a safeguarding capacity, this is allowable, ideally to remain in the car or car park at a safe distance to prevent unnecessary social interactions. And then from a club point of view, facilities should have dispersion measures in place at all entrances and exits. So there should be clearly defined entrances and exits for drop-off and collection times to avoid unnecessary gatherings or congregations. Then just some quick points with regard to indoor facilities. As we are all aware at this point, all activity should be outdoors at this point, and there should be adequate signage and reminders in place at strategic areas around the club grounds. So indoor sports facilities, halls, for example, should not be used. It should really only be bathrooms in a controlled manner that should be used indoors. And of course, all of the standard infection control guidance from the HSE should be heeded. So just a reminder, the dressing room should not be used. Players should be coming togged out and leaving and showering at home. They should be bringing their own water bottles, as they have been doing for quite a while at this stage. And players should be transported in their own vehicles by their parents or guardians, and only members of the same household should be travelling together. Because it's important to bear in mind that the rate of infection, the transmissibility of the virus in an outdoor setting is greatly reduced when compared to an indoor setting. Just regarding dealing with positive symptomatology then, and this is really for the head coach and the COVID supervisors at each camp, but it's a useful skeleton structure here to bear in mind, and this is available in the most recent updated guidelines on the learning portal. So essentially, if anyone at the camp displays positive symptoms, they should refrain from further activities. As we've spoken before, if it's an adult, they should immediately leave and go home. If it's a child, they should go to the isolation room and the parents and guardians contacted, and then the GP. So the GP will then arrange for triage or testing if required, and if it's a negative test, no further action, but the player or the individual should be symptom free for 48 hours before returning to any activity. And if the test is positive, then the contact tracing policy begins, and that process begins by public health authorities. At that stage, they will determine who are deemed casual or close contacts that's outside of the GAA's control. And then different people will fall into categories of being close or casual as deemed by public health, and there's other steps to follow then as that is necessary, but you will be guided along that process by the public health officials at the time. So then finally, just to touch base again on the additional resources that are available on the GAA's learning portal and within the COVID-19 section. So we have webinars and user guides on completing the questionnaire via the FREERN system. There's further educational resources and posters and infographics and so on. There are FAQs which are being updated from club members. There might be, so it's a handy way to find out the answers to some commonly asked questions. Just important to note as well that there is a section on the roles and responsibilities in a Cúl Camps context for head coaches, for coaches themselves, and for parents and guardians. So there's detailed information in terms of what is expected of each role available in the roles and responsibilities section of the COVID-19 portal. And as I say, the latest updates from the COVID-19 advisory group will be posted directly onto this section of the website as well. So the advice is very much to visit that for updated guidance as a first protocol.